Hey everybody, David Cook, D'Franco Painting Wallpaper. I got some paper with me today because this is boring, it's technical, but it's needed. We've been asked actually a lot in the last week, so your questions do matter. We pay attention and we do content based off the questions that you ask. So even though we have a basic understanding on the products that we use for painting cabinets, in this case, we're using urethanes, but people also ask the difference between what's the difference between waterborne finishes, lacquers, urethanes. So I call the techs at Sherwin-Williams, I call the techs at Benjamin Moore, I called General Finishes, did some Google searching, and then called a couple more people to get a huge list on what some of the differences are. Some of them I know, but I'm not going to tell you the wrong stuff, so I'm going to try and keep to the script as best as possible so I get the most accurate information. So let's dive in. All right, so cabinet finishes. There's a lot of different reasons to use different types of finishes. We're focusing on urethanes, polyurethanes, some kind called conversion varnishes, and then actual lacquers. The urethane and polyurethane 2K waterborne, they are actually water-based finishes that you can clean up with soap and water, but on an atomic level, they still have solvents in there, but for like figure an atom or a pea or thinking of a peanut M&M, they have the solvent inside and then it's surrounded by water. So when the material is put, sprayed, brushed, rolled to your surface, the water evaporates, and as the water evaporates, the solvent stays. So that is the waterborne conversion. That's kind of how those work. It's kind of cool. We're still flushing oils and stuff if we're washing stuff, but it doesn't smell as bad. Lacquers itself, there's nitrocellulose, and then there's there's another chemical, and I don't know the name of that one, but nitrocellulose is the one that we're kind of focusing. It's most available. There's traditional oils, but that cellulose, hard-based solvent stuff, that stuff is nasty. It's for experts only. So let's talk about urethanes, which is a one coat. I don't have the other stuff, but like Emerald Advance is another good one. The cool thing about that is you don't have to mix anything. You grab the can, you can put it in a sprayer, you can use a brush, you can use a roller. So it's great for the cabinet painter. It's great for people that are great at spraying. It's great for people that are learning to spray because it's very forgiving. It's also great because if we have cabinets or cabinet projects that we are looking at, bidding at in a person's home, it's nice because we can use any kind of these urethanes with a brush and roller. And because of the longer dry times, they vary back and forth. Home Depot has their one, which I don't really like. However, the Emerald one is the one we use. It takes about it's about 4 hours, I think they say, to recoat. But if you put a fan on it, that stuff, you can actually recoat it a little bit sooner. It dries to the touch a lot sooner. The advanced stuff, the thing about the advanced is it is a long dry time. That stuff, I believe, it's been a while, 16 hours is how long it takes between coats of using advanced urethane. So that'll dry to the touch, I think we've done it in as soon as like 2 hours where it's dry to the touch. I'm not worried about dirt and everything getting on there. But for recoat, 16 hours, if you don't do it, it'll lift off and it voids warranty. So you got to be really careful. Read the instructions and what it says before you're recoating and sanding. It's no joke. The one thing about it is it's been back and forth. It depends who you talk to. And talking 4 different people, I got 4 different answers as far as hardness of this and chemical abrasion on this. So even there's a kitchen KCMA, I think it's called, Kitchen Cabinet Makers Association. They do testing on products. Their product and then a different testing, they still had some variations on how good it is. At the end of the day, all the urethanes are really good paint. They hold up really well. They're forgiving. They're actually softer, so they're not prone to chip as easily as the harder conversion varnishes or harder lacquers. Those things are hard as a rock, and they'll chip right now. So let's get into 2K urethanes. General Finishes has some. Ilva is another one, and ML Campbell. It's called Sherwood now. It changed the name a couple times, and I can't remember the name of it. Three different ones that we've used. We used to use Ilva quite a bit. We used to use the stuff from ML Campbell, now bought by Sherwin-Williams, Sherwood. They have a different version of that, and they're coming. Sherwin-Williams itself is coming out their own brand of the conversion varnishes, so I'm kind of curious to see how that stuff is. Right now, we're sticking with Emerald. I don't like changing products at all, just because I want it tested to make sure the longevity of it. But the 2Ks, it's kind of cool because you can use like Ilva's one. They have two different versions of it, but it's cool because they have one that's just a single component. You can add the hardener to it, but you don't have to. So the hardener just makes sure, just like it says, it hardens faster. It's allegedly supposed to have a little bit more resistance as to abrasion, staining, and passing the pencil test. Pencil test is, if you ever look on a pencil, artist pencils, they have like 2B, 2H, like when you're doing those pencils, you have to fill in stupid bubbles. You had to have a certain type of pencil. Well, that type of pencil is how hard the lead is. And they actually use that to test on cabinets and how hard that is. Why, I don't know why use a pencil, but that's what they use. That's how they determine how hard the finish is. It has a faster cure, whereas this stuff, I can't really touch it after 3 hours. Again, 16 hours for advanced. Those Poly 2Ks, those things dry pretty fast. You can actually spray it, and within 30 minutes, you can start sanding and getting to a second coat. They're not as fast as lacquers, but they're still really fast. So you can build up a lot of layers, but they're thinner. So that's kind of the trade-off. You really want to make sure if you're using those Poly 2s, you want to make sure your primer is a really good primer, and it's tinted to the color that you're painting with, because you'll be able to get better coverage faster. If you're using just a white primer, the Poly 2s that we have used, they could have changed over the past year, and I did not get that information, so sorry. But the deep bases are actually a transparent, that they're adding a lot of tint to it. So it's kind of like an automotive finish. It's building up candy levels. So because it's a transparent base, you're adding a lot of tint. The tint takes longer to dry. The tint also affects the final sheen, which is kind of a trade-off. The more tint, the higher the sheen. And then the other part of that is, as you're spraying it, like if we do black, we've done it before, iron ore. So iron ore, we did it, and it took 5 coats to get the iron ore color perfect. It just took a lot to build those levels up, because that other primer color kept radiating through. So that's one thing we found. And then the mixing, you have to be careful with the mixing. It has a pretty good, it sends you, there's a bottle and it'll tell you X amount of ounces per gallon. So that's the other part. You got to have a mixing tub. I don't have one here, but they have just gallon containers. You get the extra one, but get a 2-gallon container or a 1.5-gallon container. Put the paint in there, and then the hardener actually measure it out. If it's 2 ounces, 3 ounces, 4 ounces, whatever it is, pour it in there. Because if you have a gallon of paint and it has a ton of tint in it, you might not be able to fill that extra couple ounces of hardener to be able to mix it up. And we just stir it. They have the drill paddles, but or take it back. Sometimes the store is pretty cool about it. I've had it, or I just add the hardener. There's room. I add the hardener in the can at the paint store and have them shake it up for me. So that works really well too. Fumes. Usually there's more fumes with the 2Ks. They stink a little bit more. It's not bad, but they do have a different VOC level than the urethanes. And then equipment. Once you get into the 2Ks, you are no longer brushing and rolling that stuff. You can get away with it, but your expertise level goes exponentially higher, because you have to use very specific rollers. We've had pretty good luck with the foam rollers from Whiz brand. They call them hot dog rollers, but they're a foam roller, and it's kind of cool. They have a little indentation on the outside of it, so the stuff doesn't drip and roll on the end. Those we've had really good luck with. And then the microfiber, they're a light green color. I don't have any here. I'd give you a peek of it, but I'll put a link in the notes. Those we've had pretty good luck with, but it doesn't hold a lot of material. So if you're on a job site and you have a huge kitchen door panel or a pantry panel, to use a little tiny roller, and they're like that thick, it doesn't hold a lot of paint. So to go from top to bottom to get really good coverage, it's almost impossible. So it's one of those things where you're pretty much dedicating to spraying that stuff on. So lacquer. I do not have lacquer. We don't have any. Magnamax is a big one. ML Campbell, JC Lick stores around here sell it. I know there's other ones, but outside of ML Campbell, I don't know the other lacquers that are available. Those things you are an expert. Automotive type finishes that as you're getting with that stuff. Same type of equipment actually. So lacquers, like older furniture, that really high sheen, that's the kind of stuff lacquers give you. It's super hard. It's like a rock when you put that stuff on there, but you can build up because they're really thin mills of, it's less than the thickness of a piece of paper every time you put that stuff on there. It's really cool stuff. And most of that stuff is nitrocellulose. That's the kind of the technology behind it. It stinks. It stinks. You have to have a respirator to put it in someone's home. We've done it with touch-up stuff for some cabinet companies. We can go in and do cabinet touch-ups, wax pencils or touch-up sticks, and then redo the door. It's great because they have rattle cans available in this stuff, so I can do a touch-up on site for someone's kitchen doors or drawers, do all the stain, and I can put a clear coat on there. And as long as you do it right, it looks just as good as the factory on some of those rattle cans, but in a smaller environment. But you better have a fan on, you better have a respirator on, and something going out that window, because the smell is brutal. But it dries fast. That stuff's dried in like 5 to 10 minutes. It's insane. So fast drying, great finishes. If you like the high gloss, that is your stuff. Recoating, and all of them, you really need to sand between. This stuff you really need to sand between. So like 800 wet sandpaper just to get it. You don't want that dust to keep building on it because it didn't get more uneven. So you want to knock off all that stuff. They don't have as good as chemical resistance. So some of the like ketchups, acidic type foods, that kind of thing, they don't seem to wear as well. They scratch really easy. Think of a high gloss on your car. How easy is it to scratch your car when you're cleaning it? It's pretty easy if you're using the wrong stuff. And then it can yellow. How long? I have no idea. But it can yellow because I've seen where we had go touch up and we go touch up a couple years later, and it's like using oil-based paint. If oil will yellow and you can open up a door, the back of it is a different color than the front because of the sunlight. So you have to be careful about that too. So which one you're using, it depends on your application. If you're hiring somebody and they're going to use lacquer, great. But everything's leaving your house or you're not in your house when they're painting it. The Poly 2Ks work really, really well. Again, you're hiring a professional. They're spraying everything with a Poly 2K. There's no brush and roll on that kind of stuff. It's still more of an expert level paint that you want to use. It's not a DIY product. Some people get away with it. It just doesn't. If you're not spraying it 100%, it just doesn't work well. So that's something you want a professional to use, a Poly 2K. And then traditional urethanes. Professionals can use it. DIYs can use it. We like it. I like it because of color. So I know for a fact that when I buy Emerald or Advanced urethanes, the color is perfect and the color is true. I don't have to worry about 10 layers of paint to build it to get the color I'm looking for. For doors inside trim, if we're doing white on white, I can get away with one coat of paint sometimes. So coverage is amazing. The dry time is kind of a kicker, but the payoff is, from our perspective, it's worth it. And it's easy to train people how to use it, and time is money. So it's pretty foolproof. It's easy. We have our guns set up. I don't have to worry about playing with needles. I don't have to worry about playing with air. We have it set at 12 o'clock. We have it set at 2 o'clock. Number 5 needle. It works every time. I don't have to play with it. Air pressure is consistent, so it just works. Cleanup is easy. The Poly 2K actually cleans up a lot easier because it's thinner. The urethane is thicker, so it takes longer for that stuff to dilute. It takes longer for it to clean out. So I can clean out a gun of the Poly 2K in probably about 2 minutes, if that. The urethane, it takes me about 5 minutes to really clean out a gun because it's thicker and it just sticks. I shouldn't say it's filmy or slimy, but it just sticks a lot better to everything. So it takes a lot longer to clean out the guns. That's it. So I told you it was gonna be a long one, but we get a lot of people asking those questions, and there's not a lot of information that kind of details those 3 types of finishes. If you have more questions, you can let us know. I'll answer the question as best as possible. Leave them in the comments, subscribe, and then I'll link to a video. We did some other stuff on primers, so we'll put a link on some of the primers that we've done before. But if you have questions on some of the specific products, we can do some specific product videos so you can kind of have some information on that also. Otherwise, have a great day. God bless.